and you need to get all the locals to set up their own local bank. That's possible.
It's trust, which is an easy thing to say, but very difficult on both sides. If you're a business owner and you want to be sure that you're going to be supported and that your business is understood. If you're someone lending money, we see Dragon's Den, and people are always over-optimistic about what they want. Have you really got the level of expertise in the local community to do this?
Well, I think the relationship is different to a sort of Dragon's Den situation. The small lower Bavarian town I grew up in, and we've just seen from childhood onwards, the bank managers. When the first loan applications come in, perhaps young people setting up a firm, the bank manager knows them. They know the bank manager. They know that he knows their parents, not just where they live. These are sort of trust relationships, and then that creates a different situation. People don't want to, take money and run. And also lenders know that. The trust goes from both sides far deeper. And that makes people more able to actually just look at the business facts.
But you want to see this recreated in this country, which hasn't got that history which you described.
It does have the history. In fact, it's a British idea.
Yes.
Like many ideas generated in England or the UK, that then perhaps other countries take and run with it and do something bigger.
And we've forgotten it. That's what I'm saying.
Precisely.
Are there the people who really understand those businesses who could also be trusted to get the money and lend it?
So the first Sparkassen savings banks were actually set up in the UK in 1810, early 19th century, and the model then was taken to Germany, and it caught on there. But of course, the savings banks also spread a lot in the UK, and there's one left actually from that era in Scotland.
Is that right?
Okay. I think it's not really a problem to recreate this. The need is extraordinary. Yes. The know-how is there. People are highly qualified, perhaps even overqualified in financial services. What we just need is put these elements together and reunite the banking experts with their local community, and not transfer them away after 3-4 years to some other parts of the country, and allow them to stay in their local community. I think it'll work very well.
Okay, let's bring the politicians in, because the suggestion a lot in Bournemouth, certainly, I think, and in Eastleigh and in many other parts of the south of England, is that taxpayers' money could be used through local councils to do this, that they could start the lending. Is that the sort of thing Labour would like to see?
Well, Labour's been arguing for a regional system of banks for a very, very long time, and obviously Ed Miliband made that quite a major plank of our policy in April of this year.
That's not quite the same as the Sparkassen very local bank, is it?
Not necessarily. These regional banks, I think when they were talked about, would generally have a slightly larger focus, but they were based on many of the same principles that have just been discussed by the Professor just now. So trying to be more open to local projects, but using local knowledge to make key business decisions, because, as was just mentioned, we've got a real crisis of lending at the moment, and I'm sure Conor's finding this as well, speaking to lots of small business people who have got great ideas, but they're just not able to expand, and that's what we need to get this economy moving.
We have been talking about this problem for a long time, and it's still there, isn't it?
Well, we've been talking about it in Bournemouth. We're getting on and doing it. Bournemouth Council are working to create a new bank. Look, the big banks in many ways in decades gone by did behave in this model where the bank manager genuinely was a part of the community, knew the community, and lent not just on the basis of a computer calculation, but lent on the basis of trust and knowledge. That's gone. I see every week at my surgery companies who come to me, small hoteliers who have overdraft facilities with a big bank, comes up for renewal, they're hit with penal levels of charges or massively increased rates of interest. These are perfectly decent, sustainable businesses, some that have been in families for generations. That's the sort of thing where small, local, customer-focused banks would come in and help enormously.
When the big banks see this, though, Richard, aren't they going to fight back? Aren't they going to suddenly say, righto, we can do this cheaper, we'll lend you the money, you don't have to go to these guys who are going to hedge around and want to visit your pig farm?
Well, they're absolutely welcome to try to do that. In fact, the problem is that they have voluntarily decided not to do this and not to engage. So if, as a result of the creation of local banks across the country, the big banks also change their business model, the better. The trouble is that as banks grow large, and of course they've grown very large in the UK, over 90% of deposits accounted for by 5 banks with huge balance sheets and thousands of billions of pounds each. When they get so large, the mechanics of a large organization hits, which is efficiency.
Yeah.
So the average cost of any deal we do has to be cut down. That means big banks do big deals with big customers. They don't want to even deal with small customers. That ends up also the banks mainly dealing with hedge funds, private equity funds, doing speculative loans.
Indeed, it's got to change. And also, the banks, as the cinema owner said there, they just spend the whole time trying to sell you something you don't want in the first place. Well, let's hope it's a bit more focused. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
You can see more on that story as well throughout the week on South Today at 6:30. Now, the conference season is over. The lobbyists have